It's a privilege for me to be here today to celebrate this Mass, because every morning I walk into a church back in Ireland and I see the baptismal font where Father Peyton was baptized. To come here to Easton, to be where he's buried, it's a pilgrimage in itself. But also today's feast day reminds us an awful lot about Father Peyton himself. Francis de Sales was born in France, and he tried so often to find out what was the will of God. As one of the writers would say, he waited so long that if it was you and I, we would say, well, God has given up on us. But he wanted to do the will of God. And the story goes that he was contemplating his vocation, and he was out on his horse. He fell 3 times like our Lord, and each time he looked around, his sword had made the shape of a cross. And it told him then that he was on the right path. He followed his vocation even though his father was against the idea. He snuck off and studied both law and theology, while his father was on another different path for him. But once he was ordained, he had a zeal in his stomach to go and bring people back to the Catholic Church because of Calvinism, and he set off. He thought he'd have a band of people, but all he had was himself and his cousin. And the task wasn't easy. He had in his mind that he was going to convert 60,000. But as the journey went on, his cousin returned home. He was left alone. And yet, people wouldn't come out to speak to him. People wouldn't greet him. And he thought, if I work with the children, then I might gain some place. And that he did. He worked with the children, and the parents came to him. When he returned to become a bishop, he converted over 40,000 people in Switzerland. But most of all is one of the things that's in this morning's office of the readings for priests, sisters, and brothers, that he brought about a new example of devotedness. In Francis' time, it was only those of religious orders or ordained could have holiness. But he said that holiness is for everybody, no matter what their job is in life. It's a part of our calling. It's a bit like this morning's gospel, the parable of the sower. There are times when we hear it, we might ignore it. There's times when it goes into our hearts, we keep it for a while and we move on. But there's times it takes roots in our hearts and other people's hearts. We have to look at Father Peyton himself, Mother Teresa, Sister Stanlas Kennedy in Ireland. They took an idea, they ran with it, but it brought fruit that will last and is still producing fruit today. Yes, we may have to change the way in which we proclaim the gospel, but that's a part of growth. Growth is good, even though we might leave behind some things of the past, and it is hard. But as St. Francis says, devotedness is a part of all of us. I want to give you a story from my own life. In 1995, in May, I went to do my ordination retreat. I went to the Redemptorist House in Esker, and there I met Father Johnny Doherty, a lovely man, a holy man. And every evening he brought myself and my classmate to the oratory, and he said this: never think you're saying Mass, always remember you're praying Mass. Because Mass is the greatest prayer that any of us have and can give to people. That is devotedness in a very special way. I want to close with the words of St. Francis himself, in which he said, it's a message for us all. Let us be what we are, but be that well, in order to bring honor to the master craftsman whose handiwork each of us are.